So, scientifically speaking, this is the scariest movie of all time. Seriously, they did a study and Sinister had people's hearts racing the most. So, let's talk about it. The movie opens with a disturbing found footage sequence of a family being watched from a distance, and then we have their execution. As we watch, our skin crawls, and we feel like we're watching like a snuff film, something we shouldn't be watching. And that's just the opening. It sets the tone and the pace for the entire film, pretty much. We are then introduced to our main family in Ellison, his wife Tracy, and their two kids, Trevor and Ashley. Ellison is a true crime writer whose previous books helped him catch a killer, but then his more recent work hasn't been received as well. It also appears that there's some degree of financial strain as they haven't sold their old house yet, and Ellison really wants another hit so he can prove, one, for the money and the fame, but also he needs to know that he's not a one-hit wonder. There's a lot of things going on in this. Throughout the film, we get the sense that he's painfully human in his pursuit, but we also have an incredibly human moment from his wife Tracy that she will stand by him until things go too far. But see, here's the thing, it never comes off like she'll abandon him, but instead that she has her limits and she will put the kids first, even if he won't. All this is to say that we have a great family dynamic to follow, which makes the movie that much better when you're invested in the characters. Ellison happens to stumble upon a box full of old 8mm film and a projector, and did I mention that they moved into the house where the last killing took place? Yep. Now, as Ellison goes through these tapes, he sees that these families being stalked and then murdered. He's about to call the police when he sees his book and decides to go in alone for just a moment to investigate the killer. Each of these tapes feel real, and I don't mean that as a cheap compliment. I mean that as in it feels like something you found in your weird uncle's basement. They look and feel like actual snuff films that we're not supposed to be watching. And the sound design of this film is just, it's an all-timer in terms of horror, but also an all-timer in terms of cinema itself. It's not a score, but more like a licensed music, but just, wow, genuinely, the music makes this film. Well, to be fair, that and the performance of Ethan Hawke, who is really against type in this, but he does an excellent job as Ellison. The range is amazing. Genuinely, Ethan Hawke once said that he plays each character as if he were their lawyer defending the client. So in a sense, you can see how Ellison really, I won't say it's conflicted, but he's thorough throughout this entire film. Is he doing the right thing for his family, or is he really doing it for himself? Is he being selfish? Which, on some level, yeah, he is. If you haven't noticed yet, I've barely touched on the horror aspects and the villain of Bagul because the movie is just so rich and that layered. So, let's jump into our bad guy, Bagul, the pagan deity whose name literally means the eater of children, a ritual that ends kids. And I mean, like, look, I just realized that there's nothing with a priest in this film, and I love that. I love that they don't resort to the Catholic Church to solve this problem. They're in it on their own. Now, too often we see families resort to the church for help, but that's not always the most realistic thing, and I like that. Now, as the film goes on, we realize that the children are not missing. They were taken by Bagul. There is still some degree of, or element of mystery, as Ellison and Deputy So-and-so still think that serial killer is a person. Having been killing since the 1970s, that would put him in his 70s or 60s. And things become supernatural quite quickly. We also see Bagul beginning to reach through the films, but again, Ellison thinks it's just some guy. There's also a subtle hint in the film early on when Ellison says, if he's old, it makes sense his method of execution don't require a lot of effort. The tree branch does most of the heavy lifting. There's the fire, there's just pulling them into the lake. He uses different tools because he's not very strong, theoretically the killer. It's only when Ellison is spooked by the kids that he and his family finally leave the house, but things are not quite over, as Ellison finds a box, again, but this time at his house, and this time with the extended cut. It's then revealed that the kids were involved in the murders of each family, hence the low effort. Even people saw it coming that the kids were involved. My guess is most people would have thought it was Trevor, but no, it was Ashley who was working with Bagul to make Daddy famous again. After she chops up her family and paints the house that she's taken, and thus this lean 90-minute horror film is over, and man, it's just so good. Even the jump scares feel worthwhile, and they don't feel cheap, except the last one, that one feels a little cheap. But like the lawnmower jump scare, that's an all-timer, and it's not just because of what we see, but also the sound design makes it work. Sinister has a great idea. It's acted wonderfully, combined with a great look that's stark, with a soundtrack that's on another level. This film is an all-time Halloween film for me and demands to be rewatched over and over and over again. I'll be honest with you, I may be a little blind to it because, if I'm being frank, I love this film partially because I would love to be a true crime writer. That's the dream, right? To be able to sit and write for a living. I like Ellison, and I'm envious of his career and his choices. It's just, maybe it hits a little close, maybe it hits a little personal, but I really like this book. I really like this film. For me, at least, it's a perfect 10 out of 10. It's a movie I'll always go back to and rewatch. What about you? What do you think of Sinister? Let us know down below. We'd really appreciate it. Do you think it's overrated like Chema? He is wrong, by the way. Let us know down below. Catch y'all later. See you.